Hey everyone, and welcome to Screams After Midnight. I am Peter, and joining me, as always, is Tim.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
We talk about horror movies on this show, although not as typically as we do. What I'm trying to say is today's not a normal episode. Today's a little bit different because it's the Octoberthon. The
Oh, okay.
Octoberthon, of course, we do episode. We're doing a try to do episodes every day, and that's exciting and fun. And we've already had like 7 episodes go up. I'll do a little update at the end of this episode, telling you what's been up. But this episode is basically going to be just the horror movie news because it's not attached to any movies. Plus, we're also going to talk about what other movies we've been watching for October, just on our own time, just briefly, spoiler free. We'll give you some sort of updates on that. But that's the plan. That's what we're going to do. We're going to do this 4 times throughout the month.
Month.
Yes.
Yes.
And the day that these go up on YouTube for everyone is the same days that the exclusive Patreon episodes of the Wishmaster franchise are going up on Patreon for patrons. So that's exciting, right?
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah, and
think that's pretty exciting.
if you're not already a patron, you're probably going to want to get it at the very least for this month because, oh boy, those Wishmaster movies, my goodness, it's they were something else.
Yeah. Oh yeah. 1, 2, and 4 specifically are
Yeah.
interesting discussions.
Mm-hmm.
Not to undersell 3, just that
Sure.
that
Yeah.
one was a bit more normal. So, but yeah, so that's the plan for today. We're going to talk about movie news, and then we're going to talk about just what we've been watching kind of casually, and some of those may end up being future episodes of streams, of course.
Oh, sure.
But we're just going to talk about them casually. Let's start off with our weekly update of what's coming back from Halloween
Oh
for the
boy,
new
here we
Halloween
go.
movie. Halloween Kills is coming. Oh yeah.
Hmm.
I don't even know why I said that. I was very sarcastic. That oh yeah, I'm not that excited because I didn't like the last one. But
Well, yeah, that's why it's sarcasm.
yes, thank you for explaining, Timothy. So what's coming up is we have characters. We had the nurse announced last week is coming back.
Mhm.
We know Tommy Doyle's coming back. Lindsay Wallace, the other child who was the bully, whose name I'm never going to remember. Like we have all these characters coming back. We're having a location come back now, Tim.
Oh man.
Yeah, you
Can't
said,
wait.
what else can we bring back? Who else can we bring back? The question was not who, Tim. The question was where.
Where?
Where else can we bring back? So coming back is the Haddonfield Memorial Hospital. Apparently that location will be featured in the film, which is interesting because that is associated with Halloween 2, which is actually not in continuity with these two movies.
Yeah, I love the idea of forget all the sequels. We're going back to basics. We're just doing a sequel to the, first movie. And now it's like, yeah, but we are using like all of these characters and the main location from the second movie. It just feels kind of weird, but
Yeah,
sure, whatever.
just you wait. Danielle Harris is going to be announced as a grown-up version of our kid character from
Yeah.
4 for the third one or something like that. And it's going to be like, yeah, I thought we were ignoring all those movies. Nah, psych, Halloween 4's in continuity.
Yeah, once they start getting into whatever that cult was from the later movies.
Maybe they'll do
then,
like a multiverse thing where Tommy Wallace from the new movie and Paul Rudd will come back as the original Tommy. Well, not the original, but the Tommy Wallace from Halloween 6, and we'll have 2 Tommy Wallaces, and there'll be like a multi in.
So, well, Halloween Crisis is basically what you're
Yes,
looking
yes.
for. Yeah,
Crisis on Infinite October 31st. That's what.
there you go.
That's what we're doing. So yeah, not much to say about it. The hospital's coming back. Cool. Next up, we have some interesting news here. So we have writer Bragi Schutt's script, The Last Voyage of the Demeter, or I don't know how am I pronouncing that? Is that right, Tim?
I thought it was Demeter. That's
Demeter
how I
may be right.
always-
Yeah.
but who knows?
Yeah, but so that's been floating around for a while, and the news this week though is that there's now a director attached to that script to work on it. Is Andre Overdahl from Autopsy of Jane Doe and Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark is going to be doing this film for Amblin Partners. I was going to say Amblin Pictures, but it's Amblin Partners. So this was the ship from the Dracula novel that transports Dracula from Transylvania to London. And the idea is that this movie would be, about that. But here's the originally written in 2002, so it's been going around for a long time. The script tells the tale of the journey in which the crew is slaughtered one by one by a mysterious passenger. This is kind of a cool idea, because one of my complaints that I have with a lot of Dracula adaptations, and I'm mainly thinking of Bram Stoker's Dracula, the 1992 one with Gary Oldman and Keanu Reeves and all that, is I feel like it rushes through all the really atmospheric parts of the story. And one of my favorite parts of the book actually was the chapter. It was only like one chapter, but it was like the diary of the captain of the ship, and like him like sort of documenting like day by day that people are going missing, and there's like something scary and they're all losing their minds because they think they're going to die, and like it was a really good little story on its own. I mean, can it just be sustained for like a whole movie? Possibly.
Yeah. I mean, I love this idea. It's and it's one of those things where I can't think of the countless Dracula adaptations we've had. I can't really think of one that's really included this part in it, which is interesting.
Yeah, usually there's like one shot of like a ship arriving, and maybe a little bit some dead bodies on the ship when they find it or something. But yeah, you won't get the actual story itself.
And it's kind of funny because I was listening to a podcast when they were interviewing Neil Marshall, and they were talking about like the whole point of the podcast is like movies that never got made, and Neil Marshall has a ton of stuff like that. But he actually mentioned this movie, which I don't know if it's like the same script he was involved with, or if someone else just also had the idea. But when he was talking about it, that was kind of the first time this came on my right. Yeah.
Tim, hold that thought. Filmmakers including Robert Schwentke, Marcus Nispel, Stefan Rozowiecki, David Slade, and Neil Marshall have all been attached to direct the film over the years, which makes sense because it's been 17 years this script has been sitting around. So
well, that's cool. I mean, when he was talking about it, this like to me seemed like a one of those like, holy shit, like I would do anything to see this movie. I absolutely love this idea.
Anything you say, Tim. Anything.
Well, within reason, I guess. But
I've got ideas.
But and I also I think I'm a little bit more of probably a bigger fan than you are of the Autopsy of Jane Doe. But I really like that movie and this director. So I'm excited for it.
I liked the Autopsy of Jane Doe for the most part. I thought the ending was a bit kind of generic. The last act kind of went generic, but I mean there was stuff in there I liked. I've not seen Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark yet. That's something we'll be getting to soonish. I mean,
I think it comes out at the end of the month. So
it'll probably be a November movie on streams. Would be my guess, but. So we'll see how I feel about that. I've heard mixed things about that as well. I've heard people who like it. I've heard people who dislike it.
Yeah, it seems to be a little polarizing. I've seen, and it's one of those like more extreme movies. Like I haven't seen a ton of people that said it's just okay. It seems like people are either, oh no, it was great, it's amazing, or oh no, it was awful, it was horrible. But we'll see.
Yeah, I feel like our jaded, cynical asses are probably going to be in the negative side, but we'll see.
Well, I mean, I'm trying to go in with low expectations, and if I had to assume, I'm going to guess a lot of the issues are probably grown-ups who remember these books as a kid and then are coming in expecting like an awesome R-rated horror movie, and then being surprised when it's like, well, no, it's still a kids movie.
Yeah.
But
just go in with low expectations. Just go in with like, this might be in the territory of the boy, and then it'll probably meet those expectations because that's not that difficult.
Well, I mean, it's hard to hold much up to that standard.
So. You still looking forward to The Boy 2, Bram's Harder?
Oh, of course. Of course. It's my, it made our list for most anticipated of the year.
First of all, no such list was even made. Secondly, if it was made, it would not be on that list. How dare you? So, yeah. We'll see. And also, if they do change the Bram sequel to like copying Die Hard, like sequel naming, it does mean the third one would be called The Boy Brahms with a Vengeance.
Ooh. That's not bad.
Yeah. And then it'll be A Good Day to Bram's Hard, and then finally, that's the fifth one. The fourth one was Live Free or Bram's Hard. There you go. All right. So next up,
I'm a partial to Brahms Tokyo Drift myself.
Two Brahms, two boy. Oh dear. All right. Next up, we have a film that's going to be produced by Eli Roth. Eli Roth's producing a film for Orion. It's a
Mm,
slasher film called 1031.
mm,
Um, not much to go on yet. It says the script is about a young woman who takes her niece and nephew to trick or treating and discovers a note inside a candy wrapper that says there's a killer on the loose on the block. Um,
mm.
and Eli Ross hype up to this. It's one of the best premises that I've read in years. He's not directing, which is the best news about this story. Means it might actually be good, but yeah.
Yeah, this is actually that's kind of exciting, and yeah, obviously, we haven't been too kind to the Eli Roth movies in the past, but I do think the man has good taste. Like if you listen to him on podcasts, or he had that whole show on AMC about the history of horror. Like he obviously knows good horror. I think it might be a little difficult for him to you know make it all the time.
I
I don't
think
want to,
Eli
but
Roth for me is an example of sometimes like a fan, like someone who's a director now who grew up a
Mhm.
fan and now is making the movies. Sometimes that's not a good thing.
Sure,
Sometimes
yeah,
it doesn't work. Like maybe Rob Zombie's another example where I kind of
yeah,
appreciate that he's a big fan, but I hate his movies.
yeah. That's true, but yeah, I mean, at the very least, though, maybe they are better at this kind of thing, like producing, or
Mm.
being on the lookout for stuff that they can recognize as good. So yeah, and that's like a decent enough premise that could be cool.
Yeah, just funny about this. I was about to say that we don't actually. It's been a long time since we've really had outside of like obviously the Halloween like reboot sequel whatever you want to
Mm,
call it. Slasher movies set in Halloween have kind of not been around for a while. Like there's not really been a lot of them. So
true. Yeah.
yeah, I'm all for a bit more of this.
Mhm.
Well, I guess Hellfest kind of counted because they went to like a Halloween
Mm,
kind of attraction,
yeah.
and that's what the slasher victim was. But this is like trick or treating. This is like out in the street where the kids are trick or treating, and there's someone going around stabbing
Yeah.
mofos. Uh, Next up, an actress from Annabelle Comes Home, Madison
Mm.
Eisman. She was the main
Okay.
teen, the
Yeah.
blonde, and Annabelle Comes Home. She's going to star in a horror film for Blumhouse TV and Amazon Studios, which I guess
Mm,
means it's an Amazon movie. But I mean, they release it in theaters first though and put it on Amazon Prime later. They don't do the Netflix thing where they put it straight
oh,
out. But
interesting.
it's called Nocturne, and
Mm,
Zoe Quirk is writing and directing Nocturne, which will also star Sydney Sweeney, who was on Euphoria on HBO recently. The supernatural thriller is about an incredibly gifted pianist who makes a Faustian bargain, sorry, to overtake her older sister at a prestigious institution for classical musicians.
mm.
Um, I mean, it says it's a supernatural thriller. It also says it's a horror movie at different points. The actual description doesn't really tell us like
Yeah.
much about it outside of the Faustian kind of part. Maybe kind of hinting at something, but so yeah, she was
That's
pretty good in Annabelle Comes Home. To be fair,
Yeah, no, she's definitely a good actress. Kind of seems like this is becoming a little bit of a trend. Like kind of, these prestigious classical, musician horror movies. Like we just had The Perfection, and
mm.
we had the trailer for that other one. I forget what it was called, but like that Rob Shea one that
Yeah,
seemed to
yeah.
also be.
God, I can't remember the name of it, but yeah, you know what you're talking about. Yeah,
And now this, but I mean, not necessarily a bad thing. And I'm sure they're all like pretty different, but it's just kind of funny that like, we kind of starting to see that a bit more coming up.
yeah. So Orion Pictures is still in the game. Obviously,
Hmm.
they've come back over the last few years and have had mixed results, we'll say. But
Sure.
they've got a horror film coming up called Most Evil, which is written by brothers Benjamin and Paul China, and it's going to be directed by Daniel Robbins, who directed Pledge. In the
Mm.
film, a group of 20-somethings take a business tycoon's daughter hostage in a failed robbery attempt and quickly realize that they're in over their heads when the girl turns out not to be as innocent as she appears.
Mm.
Okay.
Okay. Mm.
What is she? Is she a vampire? Is she a demon? Is she possessed? Is she? I don't know.
So, well, she's rich. She's obviously not innocent, but
You say it's just going to be that. That's the extent of the
yeah.
horror. Is that she's just a rich 1%er, and
Yeah.
that's it. That's the whole thing. I could see it. I could see it.
I mean, I have no idea like what any of those names are for the people that you described, and the yeah that but hey, it could be cool.
Um, yeah, worth mentioning, right? Maybe we don't know
Yeah.
any of the names, but worth mentioning. Next up, we have Sarah, a film coming out called Sarah. Polish filmmaker Jan, maybe pronounced Jan, given they're
Yeah.
Polish, but Jan Kamasa, who worked on Suicide Room in Warsaw 44, is going to do an English language psychological horror film called Sarah. Uh, it's a Rosemary's Baby style horror film that follows an American couple who fly into Berlin to work on a new startup tech company. The woman is pregnant but has a miscarriage. She can't accept the loss of the baby and convinces herself the baby was kidnapped. This leads her into the city's criminal underworld.
That definitely sounds interesting.
Yeah, they're going to start shooting this next September, so
I'm
intriguing.
uh I'm reading Rosemary's Baby right now. I'm actually almost done, but yeah, it's good stuff.
Is it? I liked the movie well enough
Yeah.
when I saw it. Yeah. So we'll move on to what we got next. Gigi Sol Guerrero, maybe Gigi. I don't know. Apologies if I'm butchering that name. So apparently, this director just did an Into the Dark episode for Hulu. Episode called Culture Shock. Did you see that,
Okay.
Tim?
I did, yes.
You did. Was it any good?
Yeah. I like the idea of it. Um, I wouldn't say the episode itself like
Hmm.
really came together for me. It's definitely one of the better, uh, you know, episodes of Into the Dark, or I always forget what it's called, Into the Dark, right? Um, but yeah, it's okay. It's kind of in the middle.
Well, he's going to direct a new film for Screen Gems, which honestly, as a studio goes, Screen Gems, I tend to assume are going to make crap. I don't know. I don't know if it's just because they made the Resident Evil movies, but they.
Oh boy.
Well, I
Oh
think they
boy.
did. I'm sure I saw a Screen Gems logo at the start of the first one. But anyway, Guerrero's going to direct an untitled film based on the mythology of the Santa Muerte. So this comes from Deadline. They want to launch a franchise. So, Santa Muerte is an idol in Mexican folklore, a personification of death. She is associated with healing, protection, and safe delivery to the afterlife by her devotees. So, we'll see.
It could be cool. I mean, I'm always for like a new kind of, horror icon or something.
Yeah, sure. I can always get behind that. I just wonder. I'm concerned that it'll just be Ursula Llorona the second,
True.
or
Yeah.
like that's
Yeah.
the sort of thing that will get to it. Next up, Italian director Andrea Di Sica is getting behind the camera for a horror film based on best-selling gothic novel. Based on a best-selling gothic novel. Thank you. That makes more sense. So Naomi Usadiri, you know what? It translates as "Don't kill me," right? That's the title. Don't kill me.
Okay.
Written by the late cult author Chiara Palazzolo. The title translates as "Don't Kill Me." Is about a 19-year-old named Myrta, who, with her older lover Robin, dies of a drug overdose. She then resuscitates alone to find out that in order to continue living and cherishing the memory of Robin's love, she must eat living humans. So she's basically an intelligent zombie. Yeah, I mean, it says that
Okay.
she's still like her. She still knows who she is, but so I guess it's kind of a mix between a zombie and a vampire. I guess maybe that's the way I'd describe it, just based on this.
Yeah.
Do you, okay.
No, I agree. I'm mulling this concept over in my head. It could be cool. Well, I don't know. I do like vampires, but it's not jumping out at me right away. But obviously, like anything, kind of can hinge on a well written script and a good director and everything. So I won't I won't completely knock it out of my mind yet. I'll wait for to see how it goes.
That last 30 seconds of you talking was poetry in motion, Tim. You somehow managed to fill 30 seconds by saying almost absolutely nothing, but constantly talking, constantly making noise. That's impressive. Next up, Andrew Gorey will write and direct an indie horror film called Hell House, not to be confused with Hell House LLC or any of that franchise, for Camera Ready Pictures. We have a cast for it as well. Jess Weixler from Teeth That's a deep pull.
Oh,
Because that was a while ago. So she
yeah.
you know, she was she was playing a teen in that. So she's probably like in her mid-30s or whatever now.
Mm.
But she's going to be in it. Stephanie Scott. We need to do teeth on Screams at some point. I can't believe we've not done teeth.
Oh, sure.
But teeth in a vagina, people. Come on, it's just a gold. Stephanie Scott, who was in Insidious Chapter 3. I remember liking the lead girl in that. Odesha Adlin from Nashville as and that rounds out the lead cast. The story centers around the complicated relationship between a small town high school peers Dawn, played by Scott, and Michaela in the Deep South. On the eve of a religious themed Halloween attraction, or Hell House, the grand opening, and the various townspeople who try to keep the two apart with disastrous results. So, interesting. It sounds like it's going to be different from the from Hell House LLC. It doesn't sound like it's just that it's haunted. It sounds like it's going to be more about the people. But yeah. couple of names. I mean, they're not big names in horror, but like, you know, it's like, oh hey, I've seen Teeth. Oh hey, I've seen Insidious 3. Putting these people together, that's okay.
Yeah, it could be good. It's like another thing I feel like is popping up quite a bit now. Are these horror movies that take place in like some type of horror attraction, and like you said, it doesn't sound like it's the enemy is the actual place, like Hell House LLC or some of these other movies, but still it seems like that's kind of becoming a popular setting.
Yeah. Do you know when they reboot Hell House LLC, they should call it Hell House Incorporated.
Yeah. Not bad.
Yeah, or Hell House, I don't know, but something different from LLC. Anyway, next up, where are we? So, we're on trailers now. So we've got 3 trailers to talk about. The first one is for a film called Eli, which is a Netflix movie, and this is Kieran Foy. If I just get that, yeah, Kieran Foy's film. This is coming out on October 18th. So as always with Netflix, they kind of released a trailer just a few weeks before the films drop. Here's the description. After checking into a clean house to treat his autoimmune disorder, Eli, aged 11, begins to believe that the house is haunted. Unable to leave, Eli soon suspects that the house and the doctor who runs it are more sinister than they appear. So, what did you think of the trailer, Tim?
I was not into this at all. Sorry, Eli. Again, like, who knows? We watching it could be pleasantly surprised, but there just wasn't really anything about this that stood out to me or looked visually that interesting.
Is this a young Eli Roth? The trailer didn't reveal it, but I feel like that's what they should do with it. No, I didn't like it either. I think these scares felt really like generic and like, I've seen these exact scares with the every time he turns the light, the ghost is closer to him. I've never seen that before.
I wonder if anyone watched that trailer and like did not immediately know what was gonna happen. Like it's choreographed so obviously.
Or even the CG part where she's like got her back bent, sort of like backed away, and then she kind of like, well, it may not even be CG. She may just be a contortionist, but like the reason why I say CG is because it felt fake, because they add all these sound effects and all these crunching sounds as she sort of like straightens back up, and it feels. I don't know. I feel like I've seen this like 100 times before, and nothing in this was interesting.
Well, and the funny thing is it does sound like it kind of has an interesting premise where you're talking about this kid that has this disease where he can't really go to the outside world, and then it seems like he's kind of starting to get freaked out with the doctors, and it seems like there's like a level of paranoia there. About what's wrong with them and what's going on outside, that could be interesting, but yeah, it just devolves into generic supernatural stuff that we've seen a million times. So it's, I don't know, kind of weird that, well, I mean, I guess not weird, but they're going, it seems like they're going with the angle that we've seen a million times before, as opposed to maybe something a little more interesting, which is a shame.
Yeah, the only interesting thing in the trailer, to be honest, is that Max from Stranger Things is in it.
Oh, right.
And I was like, oh, hey, I like Max.
Yeah, she's good.
But
so it's a Netflix movie because they got someone from a Netflix show. Yeah.
That does seem to happen a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Does seem to happen an awful lot. Next up, we got a trailer for Trick. So I mentioned how there's not enough slasher movies set in Halloween. Well, apparently there's one closer to us, because here we go, Trick. Trick's the thing. It's coming on demand on October 18th. So I don't see us having time to squeeze in extra movies, Tim, but I feel like squeezing in a movie set at Halloween like this before the end of the month would be the one that we'd pick if we're going to try
Oh,
and squeeze
sure.
something in.
Yeah.
So this is coming out October 18th. Trick introduces new slasher villain Patrick Trick Weaver. Get it? Patrick.
Mm,
Who comes
there you
back
go.
every Halloween to do some killing. And it looks like he's a man of many masks, with the trailer highlighting a handful of different Halloween masks and also teasing some brutal kills. Yeah, so that's bloody disgusting words there. Yeah, Trick. Do you know what's funny? I remember hearing about this in the news at one point, and we talked about how it sounded more like a thriller because it was this detective who was like convinced the killer was coming
Right.
back and whatever. But the
Yeah.
trailer, to be fair to it, does make it look like a straight up horror movie.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
A lot of kills. You get this pumpkin wearing like killer like stabbing. Well, he's got multiple masks. He's got like a pig mask at one point. Which maybe is part of his gimmick is that he's changing mask because it's like Halloween. So he's changing mask constantly.
That'd be interesting. Yeah.
Tom Atkins is in this, by the way, just FYI.
Oh my god, my hero.
We'll see what we could do. Maybe I'll kick out one of the other movies that we had planned. Like they get Trick in.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's coming to VOD on October 18th. What did you think of the trailer?
I think I'm about 50-50 on it. Like I like the premise. Like you said, it's always a little more fun, especially around this time of year when you have a horror movie set on Halloween. So I do like the idea that it does seem very Halloween focused, and like just kind of like the kids doing stuff like playing. I don't know if it was like a spin the bottle type game, but with a knife and stuff. Like I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. But then there's a few things here and there, like you mentioned, like with the stuff with the cops, didn't seem as much my style. And then there's kind of a part where he like kicks up the knife and then grabs it, and it's all like very like fluid and impressive and stuff. But it also doesn't really feel like the kind of creepy thing you would see like from a slasher character. Like it feels like a little too clean, kind of modern
What if I
fight style.
what if I told you it was from Todd Farmer and Patrick Lussier, who did Drive Angry, My Bloody Valentine 3D? Would that sway you better or worse?
I don't think I have strong enough opinions on them. Drive Angry, I honestly don't really remember much, which probably isn't a good thing for like a
Yeah,
crazy Nick Cage
I never
movie.
saw it, so I don't have an
Well,
opinion.
I mean, I think there's a reason why people aren't, well, people are still, talking about like The Wicker Man today and how crazy, that is versus, this movie, which I don't think I don't think it goes as like big and crazy as you want it to be.
Not
And then,
not as memorable as the Wicker Man remake. That is a
yeah.
damning statement.
And then, then the My Bloody Valentine remake. I remember not being like super down on it, but I also don't think
Mm.
I obviously didn't love it. But I don't know. It could go either way, I think. But
Yeah.
I would say I'm at least like, at least with this one, like I could see it being bad, but at least I'm interested in it, versus
Mm.
something like Eli, where I could not care less if I didn't see it. Like this, even if it's bad, I do kind of want to see it.
Well, that'll take us on to the final trailer, which is one
Well,
that
what about you though? Are you excited for it? Or?
oh, so I mean, it looks okay. Like, I think it
Okay.
could be a fun slasher movie. It could also be a bad slasher movie. I mean, I like some of the kills from the look of the trailer, but
Yeah.
but it doesn't look bad though. Like it's like some trailers feel like a
Yeah.
red flag. This didn't feel like a red flag. It just felt like, oh, this could go either way. But like,
Yeah.
didn't look bad. So yeah, the final trailer, which is
All right, the main event.
yeah, it's the main event, because Tim has never done this before. Tim messaged me halfway through the week and said, "Pete, we need to talk about this trailer on Screams." And I mean, I would have probably found it. I'd have probably stumbled on it when I was looking for trailers, but Tim
Oh,
wanted
everyone's
to make
talking
sure.
about it.
Yes, the Onania Club is the title, or maybe Onania. I didn't quite catch the pronunciation. But this is a movie from Tom Six. Who is Tom Six, you might ask? Oh, you naive
Philistine.
little innocent souls. Tom Six is the creator and director of the, as this trailer puts it, the Human Centipede trilogy. And he is here with a new movie, a new concept. And of course it is risque. Of course it's got a weird bent to it. And it's basically about people who have a fetish for a certain type of thing, I will say.
Well, there's a shit. There's a there's like a specific term for it. It's like a German word, Schadenfreude, I think, for like when you take pleasure in other people's misery.
Yeah, it's not quite necrophilia. They don't want
Yeah.
to actually have sex with dead bodies. It's not that, but like basically like we're interested in the main character who is getting off when she finds out that someone's been like badly hurt in a car accident or something like that,
Yeah.
and she goes to the bathroom, and we get lots of montages of various women masturbating in various places, presumably like spurred on, and we find out about this
Yeah.
club. This old woman's like, "Hey, I've got this club," and they're all like together watching like news footage of like people dying, like a shipwreck or something like that, and they're all just moaning and groaning and like, "Oh."
I honestly, l- can't remember the last time I like was laughing this hard at a trailer. It looks so bad, but I'm also so down to see it. Like it obviously looks like very like sleazy and lurid and everything, but
Mm-hmm.
it's just so funny the way it's presented. Like you're saying, this woman's talking to her friend and she's like, oh, talking about like her husband who just got into a car accident and like, yeah, he had to lose his leg, and then the friend is just like, excuse me a moment, and then just cuts to her like furiously masturbating in the bathroom. It's so funny. It's gonna be so bad, but I think it's gonna be super super funny. And I was like telling like you before, with the Human Centipede movies, I do think those are truly truly hilarious. Like they're very bad movies. They're very dumb and stupid, but again, in that like crazy, like who wanted this or thought this was a good idea kind of way that I think is very funny. And I do think the reason why it's not talked about more is because they are so gross. Like,
Yeah.
and I mean this too. Like it looks like it'll be super funny, but also like gross. I guess in a more like sexual way. But uh, yeah, I don't know. I'm down for this. If you want to start our own little club, uh, where
We're what?
we
We're what? Finish that sentence, you coward. Finish that sentence.
we'll leave that up to the imagination.
Uh huh.
But yeah, man, I'm down for this. What do you think? Is this on your radar now? You counting down the days for it to be released?
It'll make an interesting episode of Screams. I'll say that much.
Oh, sure.
I'll say that much for it. It's
The question is it going to be regular screams, or is this going to be? It seems like it'd be our kind of Patreon fodder, the kind of thing we would usually do on that.
you say that, but this may get the clicks, Timmy. This may get
That's
the
true. That's
clicks.
very true. Very true.
You know.
A lot of people are going to think it's the actual movie and start watching the review.
You'd be shocked how many comments we get every so often complaining that they thought it was going to be the movie, as if that would be on YouTube just randomly. Oh dear.
They thought it was a 43-minute cut of a normally 2-hour movie.
Yeah, I don't even know what else to say. You know, obviously, there's some spiritual successor vibes from Crash, the David Cronenberg film,
Oh, sure. Yeah.
but whereas that kind of felt like this sort of like deep, dark, perverse thing. It was like, oh, what's going on? You know, all these people are like ashamed of the thing. This makes it look hilarious. So
Yeah.
we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I don't know. I don't know, Timmy. So what we're going to do, so this is kind of our special format for these news episodes during October. We're going to talk about what movies we've been watching recently. I've got a few as well that are from before the start of October, because I had kind of like a road to Octoberthon kind of like
Mhm.
period where I was sort of like in the mood and I started watching stuff like a week and a half early, and I think some of
Sure.
those are worth mentioning at least briefly. So,
Oh, yeah.
so yeah, that's what we're gonna do. So we'll just alternate. You know, we'll swap back and forth. Um,
Mhm.
do you have an idea of how many movies you've got to talk about, Timmy?
Oh boy. Let's see. Uh, well, in total, I have about 22, 23 things written down.
Okay.
Uh, most of them will be pretty quick. Actually, similar to you, I did want to talk about my kind of lead up into the month, which I went to Beyond Fest. As you know, I've been
Mm,
telling you about some of the stuff there. So I can kind of run through the stuff from that real quick, which let me just say I had a super fun time. If anyone's not aware, that's a like a genre festival out here in LA. They do like the last week of September and the first week of October, and there's just a lot of really cool, um, like old movies and then new independent movies and stuff. But I'll just mention the stuff I saw there. It was kind of mixed throughout the end of September and early October. But I saw Color Out of Space, which uh, man, I'm really, really excited to talk about this one and for you to see it. It's oh boy, it was definitely something else, and it
Yeah,
did not.
this is the part of this episode where Tim will gloat about seeing some movies early. That's essentially what this Beyond Fest section is. They continue.
Hey, I mean, yeah, I don't want to sound like I'm bragging because I encourage people to come see this. Anyone can, come. You just gotta come to LA. If you ever visit, out here, you should definitely time it for this because it'd be. I think you would get a kick out of a lot of these. But Color Out of Space, really awesome. Can't wait to talk about The Lodge from the directors, whatever, that did Goodnight Mommy. Uh, Also, a very interesting movie. I have a bit more mixed feelings about it, but again, we'll go into that into the episode. Again, I think it's going to be a really interesting discussion. Not necessarily a horror movie, but I did see the uncut version of Tammy and the T Rex, which I literally like my face was hurting from laughing.
Now, Tim, you want to talk about
Yeah.
bonus episode fodder? That's bonus
Oh yeah.
episode fodder.
Oh yeah. I'm definitely down for that.
Was it the? You may have said this, and I just missed it. But was it the R-rated cut that
Yes.
just came out? Yeah,
Yes.
okay.
Which did you ever see the like PG cut or
I
whatever?
saw clips from. I never saw the whole. I saw like reviews talking about. Like Lindsay Ellis did a thing on it a long time ago. Uh,
Because what? Because I had never seen this movie. Like I know some people are like, oh, I watched that as a kid and stuff. I had never heard of this until people started talking about the uncut one. And after seeing it, I kind of want to watch the PG one now because I have no idea how they turned that into a movie.
well,
Like,
tell you what, when we do it for a bonus episode, when it's available, I'll watch the R-rated one. You can watch the PG-13 one, and then we can compare
yeah,
notes.
it's not a bad idea because it's because I thought it was like one of those things where they add one or two extra scenes with like a little bit of blood, but no, it is like a full on like gore fest, like tons of swearing, like into like sleazy sexual stuff.
So so
And this is
clear,
all
so
by the guy.
so clearly it must have gotten edited down now. Like clearly it was meant to be
Oh
R-rated,
yeah,
and then they said, "Oh
oh
wait, no,
without a
we
doubt.
want to make this a teenage movie, so we're going to
Yeah,
cut the shit out of it." Yeah.
yeah. Well, what I love is they had they had an intro from the director, who I didn't realize, but is the director of Mac and Me, and so he was basically telling the story, which is like some guy just called him up and was like, "Hey, I have this animatronic dinosaur. Can you make a movie about it?" And the guy asked his wife, and his wife was like, "Well, yeah, we need the money, so do it." So like he like filmed, he wrote this script like super quick, and then filmed it. And then when they gave the movie back to the guy was like horrified. He was like, "This isn't what I wanted. Like I wanted like a family friendly movie." And so they're like, okay," but no, it's gonna be super super fun to talk about. And then also similar well, not similar to the movie at all, but my last day at Beyond Fest, which was on Saturday, I saw a double feature of VFW, which again, I don't know, I guess not really like a horror movie. It's more like a siege movie, like I guess similar to Assault on Precinct 13. Um, but it's like old war vets holed up in this bar fighting these like punks on this like new kind of futuristic drug. But dude, you're really gonna like that. I'm very very excited
Hmm.
to watch that. And then I don't know, maybe they won't do screens, but if you want to do that on like a, I guess I'd probably be like 121 because I
Hmm.
wouldn't really say it's that sci-fi either. But that'll be a fun one. And then from the same director, he also did a vampire movie called Bliss, which I'm not sure if it's available. We could probably do that at some point if it's on VOD. But
Interesting.
that was an interesting one as well. So very very good year this year. It might have been one of my favorites. But yeah, I'm happy to say like that every movie I saw I liked in some way or another, and it's going to be really fun to talk about.
Yeah, I watched a Lucio Fulci movie in
Oh, okay.
September. I hadn't even heard of it. I just found it on Prime. It's called Manhattan Baby, and
Okay.
uh, the two things I want to say about this movie, I mean, I had fun with it. It's not one of his best movies, but it's definitely got a lot of the goofy charm that some of his more weird movies will have. The two things I want to say is one, the family's little boy in that movie was dubbed by like someone who belongs in Goodfellas, and it was hilarious. Um,
Okay.
Two, I have never seen as many close-ups of eyes in a movie in my life as this. Uh,
Okay.
but I mostly had fun. It's supernatural force, and like they bring something. They're on like a trip in Egypt at the start, and they bring back like a cursed amulet or whatever, and hell breaks loose. But
Of course.
it was literally a filter movie. Um,
Eh,
if I'm just sort of doing all my September things here, I'll just to fire through them
Sure.
quick. I watched. I mean, the third one was in October, but no, it wasn't. This was September as well. I watched all three Hill House LLC movies. We mentioned those earlier. I'd never seen them. Uh, First one, like, there's definitely some found footage annoyances in it, but I was impressed with some of the scares because some of the actual little creepy horror moments were quite good and kind of raised it up a bit. I thought two had the same level of scares, which means it was pretty solid, but it had better pacing, so I thought two was a bit better. Uh, Plus, a couple of the characters were funnier, which was cool.
Mhm.
The third one is interesting and it's very different. It feels like there's a couple of good scares early on, but it kind of like they kind of die out like halfway through the movie, and then the ending is kind of batshit insane. Where like I'm not even sure if I like it or dislike it, but I at least appreciate how audacious the
Yeah.
the ending is. It's one of those things where when the ending starts to play, you're like, "What are they doing? What? They're
Yeah.
doing this? Okay."
Yeah.
So
Yeah, so the third one just came out, which I'd seen the first two before, and I really like them. The first one I think was like a nice little surprise. Like I agree, like there's some of the typical tropes, and it's not the best thing in the world, but as a especially when you kind of stumbling on something that you don't really know much about, I think it does
mm,
like it's a nice little treat. And then the second one I thought was a pretty good follow up. And then this third one though, I thought was like a big nosedive. Like it's not the worst thing in the world, and
mm,
yeah, I guess it's cool that they're doing like a couple of crazier things, but I don't know. I just really didn't dig it, and I thought there's just like so much reliance on the other two movies. Like they kept like doing all these cut like flashbacks and stuff. Like
yeah,
you had never seen the movies before, and yeah, I was pretty disappointed in that.
yeah. And a couple other things. I watched two werewolf movies. I watched a film called Late Phases from 2014, which is
Nice.
about a blind man in a retirement community he's also a veteran. And he decides to single-handedly, despite the fact that he's blind, try and take on a werewolf that
Yeah.
his first full moon there like kills one of the neighbors. And I kind of liked that it just kind of stuck with him like preparing for the month. Like it wasn't like we go through a lot of full moons. No, most of the movie is building up to that full moon at the end of the film where he's preparing and trying to like as best he can as a blind person to prepare
Mhm.
for a werewolf fight. Uh,
Yeah.
and the actor's pretty fun. He's got this sort of like no nonsense, hard ass attitude, and he's kind of you can get into it. And then the other one I watched, so Late Phases was pretty solid and fun. You could feel some of its low budget roots at places, and the werewolves didn't
Yeah.
look that great. The other one I watched was a British werewolf movie called Hull, which is a train that breaks down, like the Red Eye train, and it's a small group of passengers who are trapped on the train, and there's like a werewolf outside. And again, surprisingly solid little movie. I was kind of into this. There's some tropes in there, and uh, some dodgy CG here or there. But like honestly, it was a good bottle movie with a group of characters trapped and they're trying to figure out like how to get out. To its credit, I hated all the characters at the start, but they actually kind of made me care about some of them by the time it got about halfway through. So you know,
Okay.
it's not bad. So if you
Oh.
want another werewolf movie to watch, it's decent. I'd say Howl's a good one. That's HOWL if you're not understanding my accent. Howl.
I'll,
Howl.
I'll have to
Yeah.
check that out. Yeah, that I'd never seen. I did watch Late Faces earlier this year, and I actually liked that a lot. Again, it was kind of a surprise,
Yeah.
like because I think it's like a couple of years old. Like it's not super old, but I'd never heard about it, and someone recommended it to me, and I was really
Yeah,
pleasantly surprised
I
with that.
got a big list of recommended movies for this decade because I wanted to
Mm,
try and like see all the gems before we do our top 50s at the end of the year, for the
yeah.
decade. And then the last thing I watched September, just sort of on my own, which I have to mention, is a film called They Look Like People from
Okay.
2015. This kind of blew me away. It's a
Really.
movie about a sort of these two friends kind of reconnect. This guy who's a bit more of a drifter or whatever reconnects with his friend who's now starting to be successful at his job in the city, Uh, but he believes that there is an invading force of aliens who are taking over people, kind of body snatcher style, and
Okay.
but the movie plays it very much like, is this real or is he just a paranoid schizophrenic? And it does it wonderfully. It's a very low budget movie, but it almost feels like Primer at points, the tone that it has.
Mhm.
But the ending and the sort of dramatic points that it makes, and the character kind of like exploration is phenomenal, and I was kind of blown away by it. So I highly recommend They Look Like People. So it's on
Okay.
Prime, I think. I think that's where I watched it. So
I have to check that out. The name sounds familiar, but I don't think I've seen that one.
it's definitely like a psychological kind of slow burn movie, but it's good. Well, that's it though. It's not that long. It's like 80 minutes, if that. So, uh, so They Look Like People. All right, give me your first October movie.
So I actually got watched a lot on the first because I had the day off of work, and one of the first things I watched was Count Dracula. This is I believe it's 1970. I think it's the first Christopher Lee like
Mm-hmm.
Hammer horror one, which yeah, I actually haven't really seen that many Hammer horror ones, and haven't seen too many. I think I saw like one other Christopher Lee Dracula movie, but yeah, it was solid. I liked it. I think it might suffer a little bit because like it kind of reminded me of like Nosferatu, but it wasn't as good,
Mm.
as it. Um, but I mean, it's still good, but there isn't really anything like too different about it. Like
It's fun. It's fun for Lee's performance and
yeah,
whatever.
he's definitely great. Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen that. I've seen Rise of Dracula. He's not in, but it is the sequel. And then the third one's Dracula, Prince of Darkness, which he's in again. I think he's in another couple, but I've not seen anything past that.
Yeah.
But yeah, the first movie I watched, again, another one that blew me away. Again from my recommended list, The Transfiguration from 2016,
Oh,
which is
okay.
a
I've
movie.
heard about this. I haven't seen it.
Yeah, it's
So.
about a teenager who thinks he's a vampire, and again, this is one much like They Look Like People, is like super like tense as a sort of drama as well as being a horror movie, and it's making a lot of very stark points. It's kind of the whole thing kind of plays out like this tragedy where you believe the whole time that there can't be a happy ending, but he's such a sympathetic character even though he's killing people and. The poster's great. It's just him walking in his hoodie, but the shadow is like of Nosferatu. It's like a really cool poster.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
and there's a lot of vampire movie references in it and stuff like that. The female lead in it is an actress who popped up a lot recently on she was in the OA and she was in she was in like an episode of Mr. Robot. She was in an episode of Jessica Jones. She was popping up in a lot of places. She was in the Ranger. She was the main girl in the Ranger. That was the other thing she was in.
Oh, okay.
But that Transfiguration is another one. Like if you're taking anything from me this episode, the two that I'm
Mm.
saying you have to go watch is the Transfiguration from 2016 and They Look Like People from what was that 2015?
Sure.
2015. Yeah. All right. What we got next?
So this is actually probably my favorite thing that I've watched in October so far, other than some of the festival stuff. But VVIY. It's something I ordered the Blu-ray of a while ago, but haven't gotten around to watching. And I believe it's on Shudder now, if anyone wants to check it out. But I highly recommend this. It's an old Russian movie, which I'm not sure the exact year. I would say probably 60s, maybe 70s, not sure. But basically, like there's this dude who has to long story short, basically there's this woman that's died, and he's kind of like I got the feeling that he was a monk, but they keep referring to him as like a philosopher. I don't know like exactly what the difference or whatever is, but uh, this the father of the daughter, um, he is making sure that this philosopher guy spends 3 nights alone with the you know his daughter's body, and basically every time at night, you know, some weird stuff starts happening, and it's really really cool. It looks awesome, and especially like once it gets towards the end, a bunch of like crazy stuff happening, and the visuals are really really cool. And it's a short movie too. I think it was only like 80-ish something minutes, but
Hmm.
I really, really dug this, and yeah, that'd be a big recommendation for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I was like the stuff this decade, so all my stuff I'm watching is all from this decade.
Oh yeah,
Recommendations. The next one I watched was Absentia, Mike Flanagan's. I don't know if it's his first movie, but if it isn't, it's
think it
close to his
is.
first. Um, this was terrible. It looked like a student film. It felt like a student film. The acting was student film quality for the most part. The detective in this was like the worst ever. Like honestly, the most enjoyment I had was just making fun of him for the most part. It didn't work. The idea of this like tunnel that might have like a spiritual dimension or something like that that opens up in it, or was kind of cool, but the actual execution of the whole thing just didn't work for me. So he clearly got better because I thought the editing was bad as well, and he edited it as well. He directed and edited it. So Absentia I cannot recommend, unfortunately. What you got next time?
I watched a movie called Mausoleum. Again, this is like an old, well, not old, but it's a Blu-ray I got earlier in the year and haven't got around to watching. It's cool. It's kind of like a like possession demon kind of movie. It's taking over this woman and she kills people, and it's a little slow at certain parts, but the deaths are pretty cool. It's kind of like outrageous, like cheesy deaths, like heads exploding and that kind of thing. So it's fun if if you can seek it out. I'm not sure if it's streaming anywhere, but it's a nice little watch. It seems like a Patreon episode at some point.
Sure. Uh, Next up, I did a film called I Am Not a Serial Killer, which stars Christopher Lloyd. Uh, and it's about this teenager who's obviously not Christopher Lloyd. Christopher Lloyd's the neighbor. This teenager who's a bit of a sociopath, and like the film kind of plays with like could he become a killer? Could he become a serial killer? His mum works at the morgue, and he kind of like helps her out, but he's got kind of a fascination with it. But he suspects that there's these murders going on, and he suspects that Christopher Lloyd, his neighbor, is the culprit. And he starts kind of like watching him and tailing him, and it's a solid little movie. I didn't think it was perfect. There's a couple of things that didn't quite work for me, but there's some great moments. It's got a good tone. It's shot in film, I think. It looked good.
Mm.
It looked kind of old school in that way. Christopher Lloyd has a good performance, so I'd recommend checking it out. It's maybe not the best thing ever, but there was enough in there that I would recommend for it. So, what you got?
Cool. I'm gonna skip around a little bit. A lot of stuff, like there's a lot of kind of just like crappy Netflix stuff. I just like
Sure.
put on in the background that's not even really worth mentioning. I'll just mention like a couple more that I thought was interesting. One I'd been wanting to see for a while is called Prison, which I think you said you've seen before.
Mm.
Um, and so this basically it's from Rennie Harlan and stars Viggo Mortensen. It's basically just about a haunted prison. And what's cool is that like it's not like there's a ghost that's coming out and killing people. It's like the prison itself is what's killing people. So it's like the environment, is like coming alive. So that leads to some interesting deaths and cool special effects. The only problem is, man, it is way too long. Like I think it was almost 2 hours. If it wasn't, it was
Oof.
pretty close to that. And like I think it would have just been a great, nice little cheesy 90-minute movie. Instead, that kind of gets stretched out a little bit too much. But otherwise, though, it's pretty fun.
Oh, cool. I watched The Nightmare or Der Nachtmare, a German film from 2015, which honestly kind of shifted to not really being that much of a horror movie, but it's this teenage girl who ends up like having this little weird demon alien thing kind of like showing up around her, and I guess this one is kind of more of a sort of drama about what she's going through that has this one kind of horror element added on. Like it treats a couple of things like a horror movie at the start, but as it goes on, it kind of follows in that sense. I thought it was only okay. Like I liked what it was trying to do and what it was trying to say, but ultimately I never really felt the emotional connection I think the film wanted from me. Uh, so I can't necessarily recommend this one. This one's a bit more in the middle, but yeah. What else you got?
All right, I'm just gonna list off a couple of things rapid fire because on a little bit of a time crunch. But I rewatched some stuff. Ginger Snaps.
Oh yeah.
I was on a werewolf kick, and Melissa's never seen it, so we decided to watch that. And it still holds up. Still have a lot of fun. John Carpenter's Village of the Damned. I haven't seen in a while, but I had the Blu-ray and kind of wanted to give an excuse to watch that. And yeah, I mean, definitely not Carpenter's best, but I think there's like some cool stuff in it. Some of the like kills and effects aren't bad. Again, felt like it could have been a little shorter, which I don't know. I think anything that's just not 90 minutes gets me mad. But Vampire, 1932, old black and white German vampire movie.
Hmm.
Very, very good. Just loved like the visual style and everything about it. Arachnophobia, I haven't seen since I was a kid. That's still a lot of fun. And then I rewatched Us because I got again I got the Blu-ray and I was looking for an excuse to watch it, and I still really like it on the second viewing. I think it still holds up. I really really dig that movie.
That's cool. No, I want to see Vampire or Vampire if you want to pronounce
Yeah,
that way.
really really nice Criterion
Mm,
Blu-ray of it.
mm. I've got two more. I've got Grave Encounters, which I hated.
Yeah,
Basically, like
yeah, I remember not liking that.
at the start, I was doing some sort of like satire of like those ghost hunting shows, and I was like, okay, I'm chuckling at a few things here. But the actual horror stuff was terrible. The CG like faces opening wide and shit like that. I hate it so much. I hate that trope. But by the end, it was just a chore to get through. So I cannot recommend that. That's from 2011. And then the last thing I watched before this, horror comedy, which I know Tim likes, is One Cut of the Dead. I watched
Oh
that.
yes, yes.
Which came out in 2017 in Japan, but is just this year kind of doing the rounds, and everyone else has seen it now. But so there's, I can't really spoil too much about this. I'll just say that
Yes.
after the first 30 minutes, the film kind of becomes something else. And what I'll say I like about it is that it becomes kind of meta in a way that interests me, because as I was watching the first 30 minutes, I went, oh, I'm imagining how they were doing this, and treating it as if a thing. And then it kind of becomes about that in a weird way in the
Yeah.
second half. So it's a fun movie. I wouldn't say it's a complete knockout of the park, but um, I like the inventive kind of like kind of like wild nature of it. Let's just do this just because we can do it. And
Totally.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, this really is. I'm glad people are starting to watch it now because I had I'd heard good things about it, but it's like impossible to find. And then it was like playing on a plane I was taking, and after I watched it, I was like, "Oh, this is great! I want to talk to people about it." And now it's on Shutter, so
Mm.
people can finally start checking it out. But yeah, it's hard because yeah, you definitely don't want to spoil it because yeah, something happens, and it's not necessarily like oh, it's a big twist or anything. It's just something happens that makes you like rethink all the stuff you saw before, which yeah, like you said, is just really like fun and inventive. And I don't know, like by the end of it, it's like obviously it's not like a horror movie, but like by the end, I actually had like a warm feeling. Like it, I don't know, it just made me feel good watching it.
No, I get it. That was a fun time. So that's what I've watched. So that basically wraps up the show. I'll just before we go, I'll tell you that so far in the Octoberthon we have episodes up for Creepshow, the Child's Play remake, Terrifier, Freddy's Dead: The Final Nightmare, Tigers Are Not Afraid, Psycho, and the Banana Splits movie. And by the time this goes up, also the Greasy Strangler. So you've got a bunch of stuff there, and I won't preview too much because I want something to be a surprise. But I will say that assuming recording goes to plan, tomorrow should be in the tall grass. So looking forward to it. Yes. So yeah, just keep enjoying the Octoberthon. Let us know what you thought of the news and stuff in the comments. Let us know what you've been watching. You can of course support everything we do on Patreon, patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. If you give us $1 per month, you get access to an exclusive bonus episode every month. Although for October, because it's the Octoberthon, you're getting all 4 Wishmaster movies. Over the course of the month. So go to Patreon, do that. The $5 tier, you get a vote and stuff like that. So go and do all that. Also, rate the podcast in your podcast app 5 stars. Helps out a lot if you do that. Like and subscribe. Ding the bell so that you get notifications for sure when we post new stuff. But yeah, that is it. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching scary movies, guys, and we will see you next time.